And I'm sure Councilman Staley will show here in a few minutes. So we need to excuse Roger for just a few minutes also. He's up at the fire station conducting some business. Who?
Ruth. She gonna talk about affordable.
Yeah, she might be up there with Roger. So she'll be here in a few minutes. So we'll start with the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay. So we'll
We
go to
can't do
number 5
anything.
and just adjourn because they're not here.
Adjournment, okay, there we go.
So we shouldn't have
Oh,
started
well.
the meeting yet then. Should have.
Hours, update on this property sale.
It's a good thing, because I downloaded the wrong.
Yeah, is
Gentlemen,
Ruth in our
while we
office?
got,
Can you see?
while I've got you here, the League of Cities Conference is April 10th through 12th. If you want to participate, let Denise know.
Okay.
We can accommodate that for you. And maybe you could tell us, Bill, about, did you go to the Historical Society meeting? Or are you going to wait till tomorrow?
I did. She's not there? Okay, so I went to the Historical Society meeting. They have been contemplating doing another statue for a historical person in our community.
Right.
The person is Priscilla Covington, I think. Is that her first name?
Yeah. Right.
Something like that. And so they were trying to decide whether to put it where they were, if they do it, where they were going to put it. Whether they wanted to put it out here at by the museum, or if the city would be willing to let them put it up at the Covington home. And so I told them that we feel like we trust their judgment, whether it's either place, but up at the Covington home seems like a pretty appropriate place for it. Their only concern with that is that they don't want to say that it's going to go up there and have the city put it like back in the backyard in the corner or something like that. And so they want to talk to us about working with us to make sure that if they decide that's where they want to put it, that we work with them to make sure it's in a good location for people to be able to see it.
Did they talk about a cost or anything, or cost to the city?
They did. There's no cost to the city. They'll do all the fundraising privately. Cost of the statue, they estimate between $50,000 and $60,000. And so they've already started the fundraising. They started this last week, and everybody kind of pitched in a little bit of money. So they're going to start the fundraising. They're hoping that you, Mayor, can maybe make a mention of it in the city newsletter as part of your article. Maybe
Sure.
talk about that it's. So you may want to get with George
Okay.
about that, but it's kind of their idea with it is to kind of promote the women who have helped build our
Sure.
community, and so this is a way for women, and they've kind of made the suggestion that possibly if they could get every woman in the city to donate $10, then all of a sudden that statue becomes really easy to afford. So.
Yeah. Wow.
Just hope it doesn't end up next to the John Lee statue.
Wow.
Actually, we can bring him back now that
Yeah,
his
we can-
name's been untarnished with the new developments.
That's
I don't
true.
know about that.
Oh, you guys,
Fun
that's
to
great.
try.
That's great.
So, anyways, they would like you need
I'll
to talk
contact
with
them.
George,
Thank you.
and he can get you the information.
Okay. Just to let you know, there are 2 new businesses came into Cottontown Village.
Oh, good.
Yeah. The Hickory, I can't remember the name of it's a sandwich shop.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Well, they're not open yet. They've done some remodel on their building and kitchen.
Hyperventilating down there. Business license.
Both of them haven't opened up, but they're coming in. They're coming into, one of them was a boutique or I can't remember the name, but one of the guys I play softball with, his daughter opened up, but they do, they make homemade quilts and doilies and all, all that kind of fun stuff. They were looking for a place that would fit what they were trying, their theme, and Cottontown Village fits their theme. And so the sandwich shop is I've eaten it. There's one up in Cedar. It's really good. Yeah,
Called
you
the
like
Brick
it.
House.
Brick House, that's it. The Brick House. So look for those, Denise and Tara, to come through. Anything else you
Didn't
want to just?
the Cloughs also open, didn't they open up in Cottontown Village? Opened that little shop where they sell the clippies for baby's hair and all kind of little,
Oh, yeah.
and
I think,
adornments.
yeah. Is that open?
I saw her grand opening just this week and on Facebook saying they were opening it up in there.
I wonder if that's that building. I wonder if that's the one I'm talking about. So some good things.
Good. I'm looking forward to having the pharmacy proposal come forward.
Yeah.
See those plans.
I think that'll be a good one.
Yeah, he's excited about it. Anything from staff? Would you like to come up and tell a joke or anything?
While we're chatting, Mayor, I was at the Little League opening exercises last
Oh.
night,
Was that?
and it's been a while since I've been up there for any Little League related stuff, and there were teams all over the place and people all over the place. I was impressed with how big and busy it is.
We need more fields.
I also had the same thought when I was there.
What's that? Yeah, I know.
We were talking about Little League fields.
Yeah, we can't. No, there's games, my kids are both playing, and let me tell you, there's games every night of the week.
Barry, did you say we can't even keep up with the ones we have?
Yeah, we need to get new ones and keep the ones we
I
have,
mean,
yeah.
don't turn them into cemeteries?
Yeah, you say you don't want a cemetery there. Amen. I'm on your team there.
I might turn them into cemeteries if we build a few others elsewhere.
I say do both.
Maybe it makes sense, but I agree, we can't make that a cemetery and just get rid of that. It's plain, we gotta have a few fields somewhere. I agree.
I wonder what you put on the minutes for this time lapsed. Well, you can text him. I can text him, but I don't know if it's any good. Where's
Yeah, I
Rick?
didn't get the impression that he wasn't gonna be here.
Well, he said he ran up, and I know I came across that way. The fire station was humming. There's something. I don't know if they're making the announcement up there tonight or what was going on, because it was stacked up there. They said that's where Roger went, so I assume he may went to go make that announcement.
Jeff.
It's a good choice, wasn't it? I tell you, it was tough. We got 19 good applicants.
What's that?
Our fire, they were talking about your chief. Told him it was a tough choice. There was 19 good applicants.
Very good applicant.
Hey, Council Hudson, have you heard any responses back on our RFP?
See, you can
Interesting.
I asked Barry about that today. He said they expected probably 2 or 3.
Should we give the 10 minutes college professor time period and we call it good? I say.
what's it called? Utah
Class is canceled if they're 10 minutes late.
Baseball Association or something.
Well, maybe we can, yeah, let's get it going.
Okay.
I know Roger will be down, but what he wanted to start off tonight was to have the department heads come up and talk about, and give you some information about their projects, and then he'll come in and give some feedback, but I figured we could probably get started if you want, so you don't feel like you have to wait. It's up to you guys, but
Well, let's get started.
departments will kind of give an overview and talk about their individual projects and give you a chance to ask any questions you might have on those, so.
Barry, let's go.
Let's roll it.
I have them on here, and we're gonna try to make it work, whether we can or not. But I think most of you probably know where these are, and if you have any questions, we can do that. The first one we're talking about is, of course, the trailhead, which is called, oh, there's Roger right there. Roger? Did you get my emails? Can you? Is Steve gonna do that for us? Okay. The first one is the trailhead, formerly known, we're trying to change the the lingo, the hellhole area.
What are you gonna call them, dump trail?
Yeah, I don't know, we can,
Call it Dogtown.
we'll get something, we'll have something appropriate.
Trailhead at Sienna Canyon?
I've got $35,000 in that
The
capital
honeymoon
project
trail.
So that's for this
for
next
that.
year.
There you go.
Basically, it's what that's pretty much minimum. We're still working with Sitla on this project. If we can get Sitla to pay for it, I wouldn't even need that. But what we're really looking at doing is pretty minimal until a park goes in there. We just basically gravel that parking lot
Some
area, maybe
road
use some of
base.
those big rocks to line it and make it more defined and where people can park, and then
Get the
finish that
trail,
trail.
get the trail actually up to the top rather
Yes.
than walking
Yeah, and
dirt.
then we would pave that trail down to where we're at. And so I've got the cost from the construction company that actually built that trail, and it's about 25,000 or so, 25 to 27 to finish that, to do that. And then, depending on the oil prices, of course.
Right.
And then whatever it took up in the parking lot area, which wouldn't be a huge thing, so that would.
So you've
So with
budgeted
that, do you
35.
anticipate paving from
The
from
top.
Telegraph on into your,
Yeah, no, and that's a question that will probably come up, because I know one thing that we may need to do as part of this is the little parking lot area that you're all aware of. And then the next picture actually shows going down that hill, the first part of that
Yeah.
trail, and then I walk down to where about that ends. The next picture shows it going down to where it'll tie into where the trail's at. So those are the pictures for that. But
That's that slope area. right
Yeah.
there, isn't it?
yeah, and so you brought up a good point. There is one, and I know Mike's talked about this also. We may have one problem coming off that road, and they may need to, and this might be a Sitla issue that we might need to push as part of this, is they may need to do some curb at a certain area and have that define where that driveway is going to be.
yeah, exactly.
At some point, whether this is part of this or not, but I think that's kind of an
Oh, yeah,
important thing, and
yeah.
at least gravel or something to keep, if we're gonna have that used a lot, where people go in and out, and that it doesn't get onto our road, or, things like that, so that may be another issue, but that would be something that Sitla would have to do.
So exactly, what are you proposing? I mean, when you say trailhead, then what are we talking? Are we paving this portion of the trail?
Yeah, we're paving the
So you're gonna
trail
tie, so the whole trail will
to
become
the top,
paved?
and then that parking lot area, that first picture we showed you, would be like a gravel.
So you're just gonna gravel the parking lot?
Yeah, until we build that park, there's really no need doing a whole big expanse and ripping stuff up and changing stuff.
But you haven't
so-
got that in your capital budget.
I do.
Well, the intention right now,
Yeah, and I told him that may not be ours. The intention is to have Sitla pay for that. And so, but I do have $35,000 in case. I've always had that in there. But that's a project that we're trying to get done right now within the next 6 months.
Okay.
So the next one would be the Virgin River Trail connection, which is that's where the trail ends at Sullivan Virgin River Soccer Park, and you see probably the next picture is the best one. No, back up. Nope, yeah. You can see clear off in the distance where those on the right-hand side, where those cliffs are and those homes are up there. That's where the Hellhole Trail comes down. So it'd go all the way up along this Virgin River, take that big wide turn and go all the way over and tie in. So it's probably close to 1.5 to 2 miles that we would pave and do connect. We're just in the process. We've come a long way. They're trying to finish up the impact fee, not the impact fee, but the environmental study on that. JBR out of Salt Lake's doing that with Alliance Consulting. And the biggest hurdle, like I mentioned before, we've kind of got permission from the BLM, according to what we're doing,
Right.
to make that connection when that comes, if we do it right. And so we were planning on that. And that's a pretty expensive piece of trail because
What's
of
the
all the
cost?
issues. It's going to be about $800,000, somewhere in that range, maybe even a little bit more. But,
Barry, was the issue more along the hillside or down by the river with the
Yeah.
BLM, or both?
Well, the biggest issue is up. There's some-
along where
up
the-
along
where the lava
right
is?
where you make that turn.
Yeah,
There's a bunch of there's some seeping areas, some hanging grapevine stuff, some habitat areas that they don't want to disturb, and so we're going to have to do some little bridge stuff in there, and you start talking about that kind of stuff, it's expensive.
yeah.
A lot more expensive by the square foot than it is the trail, and so that's a little expensive. This area right here along the park won't be an expensive area. but along the, you know, and they're also talking about some riprap and some different things along that river as part of that environmental stuff and those things. So that's the next one. The next photo is the big project, and that's over a few years really, and that's the finish of the Sullivan Virgin River Soccer Park. That's looking from east to west. The first
Barry,
area.
how many fields? I know you showed me the master plan for that, but remind me the number of fields.
Yeah, let me just go on because it shows it. Okay, so here's the first picture. The next picture is further down. So it's a big area. We developed about 10 acres in that first area, and we've got about 20. It'll be about a 28 to 30 acre park. It's a big park. The next picture shows the master plan, Councilman Staley. So you can see where we've gone to. That little where the road comes across, and that first little parking area. That's the park we have now, and then we have all the rest of that to the right to do. I've got it in 2 phases. I'd like to do them all at once when the time comes and just build up that money. So we're looking at close to 2017 to finish that. So I would just have to put that money away as it comes in and then finish that project.
If I remember right, we had a capital projects kind of an estimate budget that we had. I didn't bring it with me tonight, but if I remember right, it was about $2 million for phase 1, and again $2 more million for phase 2.
Yeah, well, for 2 and 3. So we're about $4 million to finish that whole thing. Maybe we can do it for less than that. We're going to try. We're going to try to get a little creative and do some things, but that's about what it'd be.
And are all the fields? Some of the fields are turf, some are grass.
We're talking about doing 2 synthetic fields, but then again, that depends on what the cost is and all those kind of things. So we'll put all those numbers together when that time comes, and you know, there's a lot of ways you can do it. A lot of ways you can look at it. Of course, the synthetic is more expensive. It's not as much as you would think more than a grass field, because a grass field costs a lot to put in also with all the irrigation and everything, but the maintenance on them is a lot better. I mean, you know, you don't have irrigation, you don't have your maintenance as you know, your personnel, you don't have your water and all that kind of stuff. And so, and they're getting a lot better. I think they guarantee them now for like 15 years, and most people say that they can get about 20-year life out of them. So.
What does a baseball or a softball field cost?
I have to look. Yeah, it depends. You know, it depends on how nice you want to go. It depends on the lighting, all that kind of stuff. They're expensive.
Has there ever been a thought to look at a baseball softball complex here, especially as we're kind of bursting at the seams out at our existing fields, and those are nice. But
not in this area, because we've already done the grading. We already did all the grading with. Matter of fact, we're just getting all that. What's it called, Mike? On the Sullivan Park. I just signed we had to wait till the other project, the river, was done. The Lomar. The Lomar. We actually, with this project, when we did all the phase 1, we actually had to do all the grading and everything for the plan on this, so that we could get all the Lomar done. So we didn't have to go back to FEMA, to the Army Corps. So all that's been done according to this. So we don't have to go back in the permitting. So that's basically what's going to be there. And we do have some other property we've talked about down in the fields for a big softball complex that we're getting closer to. It's a little ways out. Roger has been working with. Sittler, is it?
Well, we got two parcels. We got the Stookie Basin.
Stookie Farms,
The Stookie Basin, which is out there, be just past the, it's actually the next proposed interchange.
Is that the 40 acres? That's
yeah,
a 40
that's
acre
a 40-acre debris basin.
Which would be a great
That
area.
Sitla owns that, and they cannot build, but they could use it as their master plan to develop the parks. The other thing, if you remember 2 weeks ago, we talked to Drew about Carl Larson and the Stookie Farms area, and to match that up with the development agreement. Remember his proposal on the park? We pulled that development agreement, and I was reminded that there's a total in the Stookie Farms area, a total of 191 open space acres.
That's parks and
that's
open
parks,
space.
that's open space, that's the ponds.
That's the ponds, that's the water. Yeah.
But there is anticipated in that agreement not only dedicated fire station land, but also ball field land.
Well, and I like, you know, I'm a big soccer guy and coached it and played a little bit and stuff, but it seems like soccer is a little bit easier to play. I mean, you find a grass field, you do have some of the nicer turf fields at the high schools and things, but it seems like a baseball field's a little trickier to find a spot to play, and it seems like we have more people really within our own city wanting and needing to have baseball fields. So that's,
Yeah, we do need
I don't have anything against soccer fields, but
Sure.
I just wonder if maybe the more pressing thought might be towards baseball, softball fields, and that's why I thought, maybe be something to look at even on this piece for a
Yeah,
diamond.
this piece would be pretty tough, the way it's laid out, the way
Is
it's
it-
engineered, and the way it's all done, it's planned out.
Yeah, and I looked
It's
at
been,
Right now, how we doing with our leagues? Are we?
we're the same
We got it.
situation. We're the same, we're in
One
just
of the-
in need of more soccer fields.
One of the
than
advantages
we are
we've had
baseball.
with the soccer field, to go along with what Councilman Staley is saying, is we've had the opportunity it is easier for a landowner to provide soccer field space, as has happened,
Yeah.
Right.
than it is to do a ball field. And
Right.
so that's been actually a real benefit to us, and we're referring, of course, to Staley Farms, and the turf farm has provided it in times past, too.
This also, Councilman Staley, will be flag football, it'll be all those recreation things that happen. And there is a possibility, I'll have to look into it, but I know you can also, in the corner of those, you could probably do could probably be a smaller diamond, but you could also have these practice fields or something in that area as part of that, those
That'd be
fields,
nice
or
if you
fields
could-
to have set up some diamonds. It's just a matter of the way you line it, the way I don't know. if you-
I know for my kids' teams, my kids, they just don't have time. There's no time for them to practice because the fields are being
Yeah,
used
the
all the
fields are
time.
booked.
So there's no time for them to ever practice. So it's like we're doing practices at weird times. And
Well,
Yeah.
the base, and it costs, for baseball practice, using those lights.
Oh, yeah,
even
that's
when you
a
get on it, it's
huge
really
expense.
expensive is a problem too.
Yeah. But that'd be a great area to practice. You could go off of some of those corners and actually, you have all the space in the world to hit balls and do stuff like that and have them land. So it could be a great practice.
Do you not have enough room in, say, a softball field in the outfield to even have it? You talk about putting maybe a baseball or softball in the corner of a soccer field. Can you do it the other way around, where maybe you can line in some fields in the outfield of a
Sure.
softball or a baseball?
Yeah,
I know
you
the
can.
seasons are at the same time, which makes
Yeah.
it tough, but
Yeah, it's done. It's been done. You just line it out, and a lot of those games are played on Saturdays, and you just it's a scheduling thing to do that. But yeah, actually, you could
because you play
smaller
soccer
fields.
games on
on a baseball diamond.
and a lot of times
On the outfield.
and a lot of times you have baseball in the evenings, during the week and stuff. So I don't know. I was just trying to think
Yeah.
if that might be something to consider.
Those-
You're thinking for our own needs, right? You two, Councilman, for our own city, I mean, not to bring in tournaments, because
Well,
the reality of that is
absolutely.
we don't have the spin-off business, everybody comes in and they
No.
just get all sent to our neighbor to get hotels and residents.
no, it's for our residents, for the little league, and also
Yeah.
softball. I have adults all the time who say they would
So for
love
us locally, then
they would
that's
love to
definitely-
come play in our
'cause it's a
city
good
league,
business,
but there's
we
just not enough
again, we just
room for
spin it in
teams.
we spend it in somebody else's sales.
Correct.
tax,
Yeah, the tournaments
For
isn't
now,
where the
that'll
money's at.
change down the road.
Wait a minute, that's gonna change.
unfortunately. Well, it will.
If the mayor has anything to say.
That's right.
But those things are actually, we have planned out, we have looked at those things. It's just a matter of, when those can develop and the money
Yeah.
but we know there's a need, and we have those planned in the future.
Yeah.
So, the last one, of course, is cemetery, which brings up the baseball issue again. There's two pictures, I think those are the last two pictures.
What's a pretty cemetery?
have.
Are we
I don't
talking
know how to-
pictures or pictures?
I don't know how to wake it up.
Pictures.
What?
Pictures.
Oh, Mayor?
Is all it is. You probably don't need, it just shows that new section of the cemetery, that, there's the first one, the upper part of it, which you can see there's quite a few, residents, yes, you call already there. And the next picture is just a little bit further down.
This is
Just
the
more to the
second one.
south.
Yeah, this is the second one.
Okay. The other one just shows more to the north, which is, we probably have a year left in that area. And so we are in need of, within a year or so, right in that area, to have another cemetery. We've talked about, I know we have different opinions on where it goes, whether it goes in the ball diamonds or someplace else. We are looking at both options. We have work that's been done on both options.
Let me tell them where we've looked at as alternative locations, and quite frankly, we've been kind of just driven here just because of ability.
Well, alternative options besides the ball diamonds, we've looked at an area that Sitla had, that was a great area that Sitla basically said no. Finally, they said it's not. There is another Sitla area that's at the top of Main Street. I think a few of you have mentioned that too, that I'm still working on, would love to get.
It's in their master plan.
Well, yeah,
isn't it in their master plan.
Yeah, but that's not. They show a cemetery up further. I'm talking right at the end of that
Yeah,
development.
the problem where they've got the master plan cemetery, which I have a problem with, is right near a ravine.
Oh.
Well, it would be our Tonaquint, but with much more exposure. And it's not a prime piece of real estate that they're offering us. It's really, in my opinion, quite challenging. I think Barry's trying to pull it into making it a more valuable.
Well, that's not the piece I'm talking. I'm talking about the piece right. I don't know. Can't remember what that development is. It's right
there
up
north
Main
of Warm
Street as you go up.
Springs.
And there's a wall right there, and it's just there's 10 acres right on that. And I've talked to them about that. Which the doors hasn't been closed on that. We have infrastructure there. We have water, and it's just right there on the street. So it's closer. It wouldn't be as expensive to get stuff there. The other area would be very costly to get anything there in the near future. So there's an area. There's also, I've talked to Lynn Scott and BLM, and she's searching to see if there's any RMPP property that might be, I told her it can't be too far out, it's got to be closer, so she's looking to see if there's anything that might be appropriate for that. Okay. And then also, I talked to Mike Shaw today. They've talked, it's come up in conversation, which is great. We tried to get that nice and property right across from the State Center and the chapel down there off the Fields Road before. And, but last I've heard that they might be willing to do that again. Oh. And so that's another piece that I'm going to, that would be a perfect place for a cemetery. So.
Be a perfect place for a shopping center.
It would be. Yeah. Anyway, so those are some of the things we're looking at. I have an account right now, I believe $300,000, a little bit more, to work on that right now in the cemetery account. And
How much did you say?
300,000 plus, somewhere in there, which could get us, at least maybe, I don't know what a piece of property is going to cost, but if we could do it in phases and have an option later on to get stuff, we certainly wouldn't build a 10-acre cemetery in one shot. We'd do it in phases, so we just needed to we'd get a piece and build as we need.
Well, this is why it's crucial that we still look at proximity, because depending on how much the utility layouts is going to be and the length we have to put those utilities, most of your costs are going to be up front when it comes to water and power and.
That's why the pieces I'm trying to give would be close to
to existing services.
Existing services. You'd have to do that with the money I have. So that's where we're at with cemetery. So, and I think there's also another account, I think, in the neighborhood of $80,000 for property acquisition. So we're close to $300,000 to $400,000 in there for cemetery.
So we've got
money that we have that we could do right now. Yeah.
How many acres does a cemetery take? I mean, what's the?
I would like to do I'd like to secure 10 acres.
Yeah, 10
someplace.
acre piece.
The piece where I'm looking at the end of Main Street with the Sitlers, 10 acres. Would have at least 10 acres on that nice area, and not even, it'd make a dent, but there'd still be a lot of property left there. And then, so those are the big ones. And the same thing with the BLM. I told them 10 acres is what I would like to give. So if we could do that someplace good with an RMPP, it'd be cheap and property-wise, and we could get going. But that might be. Anyway, that's where. Any questions with any of that?
No, sir.
Okay.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Mine's pretty short and sweet, I think. How to get started. Okay, this is just 4, 5, 6 slides of some photos. Let's start out with numbers. I believe everybody's seen this slide that has all of the numbers forecasted out for 5 years. Is that correct, Roger?
I'm sorry?
Everybody's seen these slides previously for capital facilities?
Yeah,
Okay.
and these haven't changed. We've got one updated that's going in their Dropbox now, but these haven't changed since you last got them.
Okay, so I'll just walk through the projects. The first one in that 2014 timeframe, that 1.5 million is part of the generation facility we've had planned. Most of you have seen the site. This is an aerial photo of the site. These are just some on-site pictures looking south, looking southeast, looking southwest, looking north, and looking east. That's our existing substation that we would be connecting to. Okay, so that's planned in the general, or in the capital facilities plan is 2014, 2015, but as you're aware, we're looking at bonding for that right now, so that could come out of the plan. The next one is the Green Springs substation, or Green Springs transmission line. This is just the routing of the line. It comes from basically the Main Street transmission line along the freeway there on Main Street up to the northern quarter. That red line represents its route. We've already acquired all the right-of-way for that. It goes all the way up to the black box in the upper left-hand corner, which is the Green Springs site that we currently own, and this is planned to begin in 2014 or 2015, excuse me.
2015 is your estimate?
Yeah, that's when we'd start the transmission line. This is just a photo looking north towards along Main Street. When Main Street would extend north, this is where the line would be located, running towards that red hill, but not quite that far up. It'd reach to where you see about that road cut and turn and go left, so left towards Green Springs. That would be transmission and distribution lines, familiar, you know, similar and familiar to what you see around our town already.
Coming right out of that substation there on the corner, is that where you're coming out of Main Street sub?
We don't actually come out of the sub. Just across the street, there's a steel structure that's ready to accommodate this tie.
What's your estimate on cost for that?
1.8, I believe, on the transmission. Okay, and then about the same time frame, 2015, 2016, we start the Green Springs substation. That's that piece of property we own right there, that black square. That's a picture of the site. That little sign you see in the middle actually says substation, future substation site. That was courtesy of the neighbors. And that's the type of facility you would see on that piece of property, basically block walled. Be a much bigger site. This site is about the minimum you could build a substation on. This is our Buena Vista site, but the site we have here is about 1.5 acres, so it's for future expansion. As we need additional facilities, we'd have room to put them there if need be. So, okay. Currently, you're probably aware, but I just want to make sure you know, we're currently in a 5-year updated capital facilities plan study, and it should be presented along with the impact fee review and study for the next 5-year sometime in June. I'm hoping late May, but probably closer to the first part of June we'll have both those studies back to you, and that pretty much changes this whole plan as we move forward. Of course, Green Springs, from what I'm understanding, is moving up on the time frame a little bit. That, of course, moves the transmission line up a little bit. These are driven by load and, of course, by impact fees. So that's where we are. Any questions?
Hey, Kelly, talk for just a minute about because one of the purposes of this evening is for them to kind of understand and walk through the cash flow worksheet too. So walk through a little bit.
I can pull that worksheet up if you want.
Yeah, that's fine. Do you want to do that, or I can, either one?
I believe
anyway, talk about the cash flow under the impact fees.
Okay.
Because that's the one, operationally, Kelly's fine from a cash flow standpoint. I mean, when I say fine, meaning in the black throughout his 5-year projections. But talk just about your anticipated, and part of this is noted under the alternative revenue sources, but talk about that since you do show a negative under impact fee related.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is the study is going to come back and make some adjustments to the impact fee. I expect they'll either remain the same or go up. That should continue our cash flow on the impact fees, and of course, you know, this construction is driven by growth, and we're seeing the growth up there right now. We just hit, as was mentioned yesterday in staff meeting, we just had 10 building permits come in for that area alone yesterday. So we're starting to see some pretty substantial growth in the North Bridge, North Green Springs area. Of course, that's driving our impact fees. We're well over 300,000 year to date. I'm not sure where else Roger wants me to go with that, except for currently we're not carrying a lot of impact fee funds, and the reason being is they're all being directly applied to our existing bond. And so, you know, that's kind of driving us a little bit on our cash reserves, unrestricted reserves, rather than impact fee build up, which is what the state requires of us to do. So, you know, as we move forward, as we refinance this new bond and add any new monies, if we do so, the current impact fees will flow towards that. But in turn, that helps us build our reserve funds. And so as long as we maintain a net margin, we'll be able to fund this, whether it be out of impact or unrestricted reserves, or some restricted reserves if we choose to.
So it's important, I want to talk about revenue sources for just a minute, because that's really where we're showing either we have funds available or we don't have funds available, and that's why I want to have some discussion with respect to that. So what you'll see on this bottom section here of alternative funding sources, Kelly is anticipating both in 13 and 16 using surplus considerations. Again, our objective is to not use operating revenues for impact fee eligible items, because basically the philosophy is current residents will pay for future growth items, and that's not what the purpose is. On the flip side, if we have future growth items that are not matching up to the available impact fee revenues, then we've got to have some discussion with respect to that. So you'll see he's got 2 surplus considerations. He's got one other consideration under 15 of $3 million, and that essentially is an unidentified revenue right now.
And that could be a combination of impact fee, also unrestricted reserves, restricted reserves, which are basically the funds that we put into our risk management policy. We could use some of those if we determine that's the direction we need to go. There could also be some bonding involved.
So currently, as I'm looking at this, it shows that every dollar we're bringing in impact fees, we're paying back out in debt service.
Yeah, according by state law, you have to roll that impact monies every 6 years. Is that still?
Yeah, it's a 6-year requirement. So the dollar you bring in today, 6 years on today,
right, has to be
spent.
Has to be spent. And of course, previously, you know, up until 2007, 2008, we were surplus on impact fees. We were bringing in a lot more than our debt service margin was. But over the last few years, our impact fee flow has not met our debt service margin. So everything we brought in plus some reserves in impact fees has gone to pay our debt service.
So what percentage do you show? It looks like that number's going up every year. You envision that our impact fee revenue is going to increase every year?
That impact fee number, I can assure you,
Permits.
is very conservative. So.
Permits. So
I know.
You got the 2 components.
I'm just not sure that we're going to see an increase every year. So that's why I'm saying.
Well, yeah, what we've done is we've just looked historically, and we've kind of made some guesstimate. I mean, historically, we've grown every year.
Right.
But what we've done is our Treasury Department has looked at a very, very conservative growth rate and saying more than likely we're still going to continue growth. I think it was about a 2% or something like that. I can't remember what it was on permits. Okay. Now, Kelly's is a little funky because Kelly has north of the river is all.
Right.
And so, for instance, we actually have our Community Development Department, when we prepare our budgets each year, prepare for us a north and south permit calculation. But what we have seen is some substantial increase in permits north of the river over the last couple of years.
And if you take a look at that line, I'm going to call it line number 34. It says impact fee revenue, showing year-end fiscal year 13, budget 13. Excuse me, at 300,000. Yesterday I checked the numbers. It was already at 347.
Okay.
So.
Now, understand there's a correlation, too. These are impact fee expenses. So, for instance, if the impact fees don't grow, there's a high probability that the facilities that we anticipated on this date may not be necessary at that time.
And that's exactly what's happened. Okay. Actually, Green Springs Sub was previously planned to be built in 2011. So, okay. And here we are, 2013.
That's how it's supposed to work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But it always does, because we can just kind of until,
sure,
because we can adjust.
And the interesting thing about impact fees is right now everything that we're seeing is driven by residential, but as soon as some commercial comes along, that number skyrockets on us. And so, you know, we're hoping to see the mayor and Roger and their committee bring in some commercial growth for us in the near future.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Anything else? Thank you, Kelly. Chief?
Mike doesn't get to go till the end. He's got too many.
It's got too much.
That's what happens when they put you over all those different departments, Mike.
What's that? He's about 12.
IT guy sitting right here.
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna start making them attend all the time.
Good. Well, thank you, Mayor, Council, and Mr. Carter. Appreciate the opportunity. I took some photos of our department today just to go through with you, maybe. Here we go. And kind of share some of the space issues we have over there and the reason that we're really at a point, especially when you figure we're a good year and a half to 2 years out, even if we're able to start the process before we get a building. This is when you walk right in the front door. We have no reception area. We have nobody there to guide, direct, or welcome the community members that come in to work. They have to look on the board to the right there, and it says go upstairs. And so you go upstairs into a smaller lobby. I'll show you in a few minutes.
Now, before you move from there, I just point out a couple things. From a security standpoint, none of those doors are reinforced doors either, so it's
and I've got that on here. One of the big issues we have is security, not only of the building itself, but for those that may enter and be part of
I've seen
it.
the mayor walk right in before.
Yeah, and that's scary. But and I don't want to make too much public about that, but we do have an issue with that. So.
What are you saying, Bill?
This is right.
Executive
You
suite.
saw looking in that door. If you go up and take a right, go through a real flimsy wooden door, you go into the patrol room. And this is where the patrol officers have to do their briefings. We've got one more table in there like that. It's pretty cramped area, which we really need a training room and a briefing room that's big enough to put our entire department in for adequate training and space. This is at the back end of that room. That's the only, they each have one of those file cabinets. And that's all they have as far as any kind of personal storage for any of their personal records, anything to do with their daily work. Nowhere for any kind of equipment or uniform storage. So again, we're pretty cramped right in that space. This is the actual, it's a small room, about a 10 by 10, that we've set 2 stations up in for them to come in and do their actual reports. We really should have at least 4 for our current staff, and if we're looking at anything future, a little bit bigger than that. And so that's our patrol work area. This is a little corner of a room right outside of that room that we set up for evidence preparation, and that really should be right next to the evidence room and the evidence lockers, so when they prepare the evidence legally to put it into those lockers and have it transferred into the records room by the evidence room by the evidence clerk either the next morning or that day. And you can see it's workable, and we're working through it. This is one office where we have code enforcement and our part-timers that share an office. Fairly crowded there. Mark's working code enforcement side. And then right outside of there we have, you can see in our hallway, we've actually set up a chair and another desk area for our VIPs. These are our volunteers in public safety that come in and go out and work in the community and do those things as well, so that they can have an area to do their reports and not affect the other full-time staff doing their work. This is our interview room at present. We do not have any soft interview rooms to entertain any conversation or kind of a soft interview with anybody that comes in. We don't have anything that's not in a secured area. This is actually in a secured area, and we make it work, but it's obviously not what it should be. And that's a real critical issue for the public when they come in, to be able to, for us to be able to go and sit in a room behind a closed door with them to find out what their issues are. Some of them are very sensitive, and we have that. We don't have that right now. We sit out in the lobby, and
So I've been there a couple of times
Yeah.
and witnessed that very thing, that
Yeah.
there's a conversation in the lobby that shouldn't be being heard by
And sometimes two
everybody.
or three, unfortunately. We just don't have. This is our detectives' office. We've got two of them in one office, works out fine. As we continue to grow with
They're talking to each other. They don't communicate so well, so we have them phone each other.
At least they're not texting.
I wish they were talking to each other, but they're pretty, they
Skype.
carry some pretty good caseloads. But there's ample room for them to work in there together right now, but if we added another one, it'd be a little difficult. This is what you see when you walk up the stairs and turn into our little foyer area, which is about a 10 by maybe 14 area. And you'll see in a minute we have some chairs, but that's our receptionist, where right now we have a records evidence and evidence tech who does both of those, plus takes care of all the incoming calls all day and all the walk-in traffic, and that's where they sit. So really not adequate either. This is inside. That door, that white door behind there, you can see the security lock on top. That's a room that's about a 12 by 12 at best. That's our evidence room. And you'll see in a minute that it's very inadequate as well. This is what you look at when you go in the door. And we're using every conceivable space in that room. As you can see, clear to the ceiling.
Somebody's lunch.
I wish that was a sack lunch. It would be after you stayed in there for a little while, because you get a little hungry because of the smell.
We had to just point out, we had to vent that room. You see the big vent that we had to put in once we.
Yeah, some of the issues you have in an evidence room, that's, again, some real critical issues that we are not meeting right now, are some standards that they go by for filing and housing the evidence, as well as ventilation in that room because of the drugs that are kept in there. And so that's an issue for our staff, obviously. This is the only evidence lockers we have right now, and this is in a small little closet right behind our receptionist's desk that we've actually utilized, and we put them through the wall into the evidence room. So the officers will put their evidence in there. The evidence tech goes in the other side of the room and pulls it out, so that we have the chain of command that we need and the legal aspect covered. But again, not really adequate for what we're doing, the number of cases we deal with. This is Miriam, our administrative assistant. You'll see that she's got her desk in one corner, and the other corner of her office is all of the, which is very disruptive, obviously, for her, but it's where everybody does their copying, all of the other stuff that goes on as far as that type of work there. Everybody utilizes that area, so it's pretty congested a lot of the time. This is just the hallway outside of my office and the lieutenant's office with a counter space. We've got one of our volunteers that does our fingerprinting. As you can see, he's sitting there with his legs spread wide open because he can't get under a desk, and he's using a counter that we use for many other things. And if you have 2 or 3 people there getting fingerprints, it's very congested to get through. I think, Councilman Turek, that's where we entertained some of our youth council, and it was interesting. This is our victim's advocate, and we have a back office in the corner of the building where she's there, and we have a part-time individual that helps with records and evidence, that shares that office with her. So he works in the morning time, she comes in the afternoon time, and tries to schedule all of her appointments with the victims there. Actually, some fingerprints being done. This is our small lobby area I told you about, and you've got 3 different families sitting right there waiting to be helped in that small area. And that was just this afternoon. Parking is an issue as well. You can see we don't even have adequate parking for our staff, let alone the people that want to come and utilize our services. So that's an issue as well as we look at a new facility. This is our supply room for the entire department. It's a room that's about an 8 by 8, and you can see it's well utilized. And so again, space is needed there. This is a mechanical room that we've had to put shelves in and all kinds of other supplies that we didn't have room in the other supply room to put in, so we're utilizing all that space as well. This is one of the patrol sergeant's rooms. Again, probably, and it's an adequate room, but it shows you the space is probably about a 10 by 8 room. It's adequate for what they're doing, and there are 3 of them. This is our part-time animal control code enforcement officer working at that desk there. This is our records room, and we have boxes like you see stacked up on top there on the right, those three together that take all of our reports from the inception of the department from 2006. We've got about 35 of those boxes that are stacked in another room, just stacked up, and you can imagine us having to go in there and retrieve a record out of that and having to stack those down. We have to get either an officer or myself or somebody else to get them down and go through them for the evidence or the records tech before she can access those records. Again, because we just don't have the space to have adequate filing where they can be accessible. That's the other side of it there. And that's the photos. I thought I'd just kind of share a couple of other things that are critical in our eyes as we continue to grow in the city and develop. And we have an opportunity as we look at some different funding mechanisms and stuff that Roger may get into with you. But I mentioned the interview rooms. The lobby is inadequate to serve the public that utilizes our facility, and really we're putting them in some bad situations as far as talking with them and interviewing with them. We have the restrooms in the lobby right now. They're public restrooms. That's the only place that the officers are able to go as well, and that's not a real safe environment to have an officer in there when you got people in the lobby as well, and knowing that that's what's going on, as well as lacking any kind of lockers for the officers or other staff to put their personal items, uniforms, things like that, equipment that they utilize on a daily basis. I think I covered the evidence area very well. Workspace for the officers, again, if we're able to get a facility, we would use cubicles, so they wouldn't be offices, but we'd have a cubicle where we could set 6 workstations to adequately utilize that. The training and briefing room I mentioned, and we would combine that room so we wouldn't have 2 separate rooms. Records rooms, a small conference room, a Sally port, which would work, would make it probably just an oversized single car, single vehicle size, but we would also have to have an secured area in there for bulk evidence storage, generators, things like that that you can't have inside of the workspace, which we do not have right now. And then we mentioned the security of the building, and that's kind of where we're at as far as the needs for the public safety building. That doesn't even address if we decide to do anything with courts or anything like that. But the options as far as space and utilizing, we talked a little bit about building the back of this or building over here. I actually spoke to an architect today, which was kind of interesting and really kind of some good news, because we were thinking about 3 to 3.5, and he said for a building the size that we would need to be sufficient now and into the near future, we could probably do for about 2.5. So, and he said that there wouldn't be a lot of cost savings by building on. The only thing you could look at there is if we were able to use existing utilities and things like that. But as far as the building structure itself, is not a lot of cost savings. But
with regard to the cash flow worksheet, it's a simple one. There is none. And just because this is a general fund item, so it doesn't generate its own funds like power does, it also is currently not included in the impact fee, in any impact fee, and so there is no impact fee that addresses these issues either. Some of the funding sources that we've looked at CIB for a fund bonding source. CIB, Community Impact Board money is what that is. That is money that the state gets through mineral lease issues on federal lands. And counties that are heavy mineral rich counties get some significant grant money. Counties that are not significantly rich in minerals get money because they're apportioned out to the counties, but they do it in the form of loans. Unfortunately, Washington County is not a mineral-rich county compared to Emory or Carbon or those counties like that, Roosevelt. Well, whatever that county is over there. Yeah. But CIB is still a great source if we were to borrow. They're right now got about a 0.5% interest rate. But the other thing they will do for us, and I attended a meeting 2 weeks ago. I had Chief Keith attend a meeting for me last week just so that we meet the obligatory requirements in case we choose to do something like this, is they will grant half of the design, architecture, and engineering. So you can, in your cash flow worksheet, we're showing a 2014 expenditure of about $75,000. That's for architectural work. and at least half of that will could come in the form of a grant if we choose to go to CIB. It doesn't mean we have to commit to CIB for the loan either, just so you know that.
But CIB will fund that at 0.5%?
Yes.
I mean, that's...
Yeah. Let me tell you, experience...
That is cheap money.
It absolutely is. It used to not be that way, and see, the state sets that interest rate. We looked at CIB funds for the telegraph project, for our portion of the telegraph project, and at the time it was 2%. Is it a half or 1? Did I have that right? It could be
They
1.
didn't talk
I'd have
about
double
it
check,
in the
but even
meeting
at
I was
1,
in.
we're in good shape. But they were going to offer us, I think at the time, 2.5% on telegraph, and we found a better deal in the market. And so we thanked them. They offered us the money. They awarded us the money, but their interest rate was higher than the market, and so we thanked them. We have a great relationship with them. They were able to use that money someplace else, and we went ahead and borrowed in another source. They recognized that. Commissioner Denny Drake actually sits on that board, and he was very instrumental in getting them to push that interest rate down because it wasn't even competitive with the market. But the other thing I like about it is the grant funding for architecture. That's half the money we don't have to come up with for the architectural or the engineering. I didn't know that until I visited with them, and as a matter of fact, they've already slotted that for us. If we were to decide to do it today, we could have that awarded by October of this year.
We have to have that application in by
By June.
June 1 in order to be awarded in October.
Yeah, so what's happened is you have to get your placeholders in their calendar. So what we did, and we do this by submitting to the 5-county our 5-year capital plans, and we do that, and then they look at it and say, okay, how many of those do you anticipate you might go to CIB for? How many do you think you will go to CDBG for? And we tell them. Well, when we told them that the police station is actually our highest priority with regards to CIB funding, they will fund very quickly on those things. They immediately slotted us into the calendar and actually waived some of the requirements if we do choose to go that way. No obligation.
How do they do this? We talked about the interest rate. How many years will they fund that?
Go out to
What's
30.
the payback period?
Now, that's the advantage. There is, we can go up to 30 years with CIB. And see, here's the advantage. Sometimes you can find, now the telegraph project was not one of them. If we'd have chosen to fund the telegraph project for 30 years, we would have never got a 2.5% interest rate for 30 years.
No, paying it off a lot.
But on a short term, like we did because we couldn't go more than 10 with the telegraph, because we did it as a fuel, B&C. We did it as a B&C bond. You could only go 10, but that's why we could get a lower rate. So a building like this, you would definitely go 20 years. That's what the useful. And you could push it out to 30 years if you wanted to. So they'll go up to 30 years with that interest rate fixed.
So you're looking, even if you paid $3 million, you're looking at $100,000 a year on your building.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. We wish we just had it, but if we don't have it and we have to borrow it, this is certainly CIB is one of our better
But then you
alternatives.
pay it off early too if we had cash flow.
Absolutely. There's no. I mean, this is a state-administered fund, so it's very, very friendly to municipalities and districts and others that use it. This, to me, though, is really, from our capital budget standpoint, this is a critical need issue. And the reason I say it's a critical need issue is because it is going to take us 2+ years to get a new facility. We expected to be in this facility over here when we bought it far less time than we are now. And just with the natural growth, I think it is, there needs to be some decision. Now, one of the other options for this building over here could be another funding source for us. We could sell this building over here. Now, you know, my preference would be that we not, because we're in the need of more space everywhere we look. But if we needed to, we could sell this building, and of course, I don't know what we'd get if we just looked at what we bought it for. We bought it for $800,000. You could apply that toward it, and if you can get something for $2 to $2.5 million, you're at least a part of the way there anyway.
Where would you envision building the new station? Yeah, but I mean, where are your top
We
couple
talked
of
about
choices?
either here in the lot next door,
Like north?
yeah,
to the
north, or building on the back.
Or right behind it?
And the only reason we looked at that is because we can avoid land costs. If we don't do land costs, you're probably going to be more into the 3.
And it makes sense to have it here central with City Hall and the courts and everything else.
And I have worked Councilman Segmiller over a little bit with the garden. And actually, Averett, our Angela, And Angela would prefer us looking at other alternatives for the garden as well. But I only say that because the garden's been such a great thing here too, and I recognize that, so. Anyway, this is one of the real challenges, council, we've got. The other one Mike's gonna talk about when it comes to streets. Because these are all general fund issues with no revenue sources that are associated with them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take it from the community center profits.
Golf course.
Thank you.
Golf course profits.
Yeah, we always are balanced with, do you want an ambulance in the valley or a fence on the hill? So.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, who's next?
I believe Mike then's the only other one that has capital budget items.
Okay.
We just had the department heads who had capital budget items this evening. And Mike, I would like Mike, if you can, to, of course, go through your water and sewer and other things. The good thing about, of course, proprietary funds is they come with their sources of revenue. Oh, can I step back real quick? One of the things I would like the council to take into consideration is this, with regards to public safety. I need to come back to that for just a second. We would like to get the council's approval, and this doesn't have to be, of course, tonight or tomorrow. It can be in the next, as we do the budget process. We would like to get the council to approve us to allow us to go forward with a capital facilities plan on public safety. We currently have one. It's basically done. I mean, we're still collecting on it, but there's nothing else in the capital facilities plan. That capital facilities plan was developed to build 2 fire stations. Those fire stations have been built. The impact fee was set. We're collecting that, and that's what. We would like to have a new capital facilities plan done to include not only future fire structures, but also this police structure, because certainly part of this structure could be picked up with impact fees. Now, because our current impact fee is only $200, I believe. It's $200 a permit. Quite frankly, over the last few years, we've run short. That's not made enough to pay the debt service, but in some years we've had surplus from the previous boom years that, of course, are restricted and have to go to that. But I think even the last year or two, Kimberly may know better than this, that we actually haven't even had enough of any surpluses left on the debt service. Do you know? Fire. We've had to actually subsidize that, haven't we, the last year? Oh, we've been okay? It's about a $98,000 debt service payment, I believe. Okay, good. All right, great. So it sounds like we have enough surplus to make up the difference with what we're, and this year maybe not, it might even push it out a little bit more depending on permits. But this certainly, the police station certainly could be picked up with impact fee funds, and probably rightfully should be, as it serves growing population. Now, the next question you're going to have at some point is, well, what happened? I'm not just going to, we as a council are not just going to keep pancaking these impact fees through the roof. You know, sometimes people are really challenged with them as it is. And we have some thoughts with regards to that. You know, there are some funds. You know, Barry's going to be redoing his capital facilities plan this upcoming year. And, you know, we may decide just if we want to keep it neutral, we adjust a fund here. You can never, as a council, exceed the engineered impact fee, but you can always go lower. And in fact, in every case, we have gone from what the printed recommendation is of impact fee. You have always, as a council, done less than that. Now, I'm not picking on Barry, because Barry, as you see, has plenty of needs coming up. But I'm saying that what we could do is, if you want to kind of keep impact fees neutral, depending on how the capital facilities plan comes in on public safety, there is some decisions that are held within this council's ability to do with all those impact fees across the city. Did that make any sense?
We're just talking about reallocating from one area to another.
Yeah, it's not a reallocating, but you can say, let's say our total impact fee is $15,000, and 5,000. This is not correct. So let's just say 4,000 comes out of parks, but you say, you know what? We're going to reduce as a council that to $3,000, knowing full well that we need to pick up 1,000 for public safety, so thereby it's not a net increase upon the builder. Now again, I use Barry as an example, and I'm sorry about that, Barry, because Barry would not like me to do that. As you can see, Barry has some, but what I'm saying is this council has the authority to lower one. You just cannot exceed a maximum. All right, with that introduction, Mike.
Infringing on my time. I'll start with sewer. So our first one on our capital projects list is the
trunk line that we need to build on Washington Fields Road between 3090 South and 3650 South. Presently, there's no line there, so any growth that comes in, we need to actually add that line, as well as it will add capacity to our system. The next one on our list is the industrial trunk
What's
line.
that? What's that first one? What's the cost?
$300,000.
Okay.
When you do that in conjunction with the improvement of that road, or that section that we?
Yes, and that is scheduled for 2017, I believe. We have actually some MPO funds that were earmarked towards that road. The next one is our industrial trunk line. This is just one small section that we haven't gone in and upsized. We kind of have an issue with the property owner and the right-of-way. It's not drastically needed until we actually see a little bit more growth, but it's coming on, so we're probably going to start moving towards getting this completed.
Estimate on cost?
There's presently a sewer line that's in that location. We'll just lay a parallel line in.
Okay.
And that's just on industrial road?
It's behind Theobald Construction.
Oh, coming
It's through their
across.
lot in the back of his lot.
And what is that service, or what are we?
It's actually everything north. All
So
of north of the river.
Everything north
feeds
there
that.
comes.
So it's a main trunk line
It's
that's?
main trunk line.
Oh, okay.
Right where it goes in, the purple line there is actually the St. George city limits, and after it leaves our city into St. George, it becomes a regional line. And then from there on out, it's actually operated by the sewer treatment plant, and that's part of our treatment fees, is the maintenance of those lines, is to get it down to the treatment plant.
What's your estimate on cost?
$225,000.
Start date,
It's in 15.
2015.
The only one we have actually budgeted in 2014 expense is the sewer department building, which we had kind of talked in a previous meeting that we need a structure at our yard to house the sewer cleaner trucks. They have to be protected from the freezing. And the next project is our 1900 East lift station. At the bottom of 1900 East, we've actually laid lines in to where we can actually sewer the area on the east end of Washington Dam Road. As development starts happening out there, they're on actually septic systems out there right now. This will provide us a temporary way to sewer that area. Eventually, we're going to have to build a trunk line. We've looked at laying it in around the right-of-way that exists for the canal line. That's going to be a very large project. We'll actually have to carry that line. The canal piping actually follows this right-of-way down around.
So how does that work for those people who have septic, my gosh, have septic currently, and we start putting in sewer in those areas? How does that work?
Currently, any new development that comes in, they are required to put in dry sewer lines.
Okay.
When we did our sewer project out in the fields, when we first laid the sewer in, we actually gave people 5 years to connect, and that originally was because we needed to generate the revenue to pay our bonds on it. When that project, when I first came to work for the city, was brand new, and I just couldn't see us growing enough to even cover our bond payments, and we've had no problems.
Silly me, huh?
Yeah, silly me. So we're really haven't enforced people connecting to the sewer. The law states that if you're within 300 feet of a sanitary sewer, you have to connect to it. We really haven't forced that on people. Septic systems fail, and once they fail, then they will connect. They're usually pretty glad to connect to the sanitary sewer.
Okay. What's your cost on the lift station?
The lift station is $300,000. Now, we try not to put lift stations in. They're very labor intensive, they're very costly, but with the lay of our ground, we just cannot gravity feed everything. So we presently have 4 lift stations in our system right now. Our next project is the Main Street trunk line. As development happens, north of I-15, we are going to have to enlarge that line down Main Street for capacity for those areas. Main Street trunk line is 2016, and we're estimating that at $1 million.
Yeah, we can just pipe that into Cozy and use it as.
So that will go under the roadway?
Yes,
So we'll have to tear up that whole road?
yes.
Fertilize,
Oh.
water.
That's not that old of a road.
It's actually, it's almost 5 years since we laid that.
So it'll be a total of 12.
But that also can move, just depending on the growth when we're gonna need it. Our next project is the Washington Fields Road, the trunk line going out towards the airport. We've got that estimated at $1 million. That will be probably more of an upsizing. When development comes in, they will be required to put an 8-inch in. We will probably upsize it to a 21-inch. Currently, through up to Stookie Farms, we have a 21-inch line laid in there. So this will basically service all of our area out to the south end.
When do you anticipate starting that?
Well, we actually have it earmarked at 2017, but it's all gonna be based on growth out in the area.
So the way things are growing that direction, it could be a long time.
It could be a long time. It could be fairly quickly. Once the Southern Parkway builds, who knows how growth is gonna proceed out in that area.
That's why we have no problem. That's why it's such a hard balancing area.
This is a project that it's now we're into water.
Let me touch on sewer real quick. So on the cash flow sheet with sewer, Mike is good. There is no negative cash flow with respect to any of the projects he's mentioned until and if we were to do the $1 million airport one, and that if that was ours, the full amount, that would be, we would see a deficit occur around 2018 in the impact fee portion. That's far enough out we don't get concerned because so much changes between now and then, but Mike's fine with sewer with regards to positive cash flow.
So we got the $2 million for all the other projects.
And then as well on this, the impact fees are very conservative. The figures estimate out over the years, I think it's 2% growth, which I don't think we've ever seen only a 2% growth rate.
So can we go back on the treatment building? What's the cost on the treatment, the water, the sewer?
The sewer building?
Yeah.
375.
It's 375 out of impact fee and 375 out of the non-restricted funds, because there is actually a deficit of an existing problem that we need to fix, as well as the new growth cost. So we're 750.
Okay.
And that was just, it was real rough. I think we'll come in greatly under that. It's just gonna be a block building, the same sizes that we built for the water department that's sitting at the yard right now.
Okay.
And the yard site, we've anticipated the growth out there for basically all the departments. Water has their building, parks, we've anticipated a site, fire, we've put in an area for them to put in their training structure, and they have some equipment out there now. So they have plenty of room for growth, and the utilities are all stuffed for them. Our water project, this is what we call our landfill pipeline, or our east regional connection for a little bit more palatable for your culinary water. We're looking at doing this in phases. We have a connection point out at the landfill right now to tie into the regional water line. And we are looking at bringing that regional water north of the river. At this present time, we cannot bring regional water north of the Virgin River. For our growth, this is necessary that we build this. It will be dictated on the growth that happens on the north side. If we get any project of any size right now, we will have to start construction on this. So we're slowly working through it. I keep budgeting for it every year. We initially tried to build this to try to take advantage of our low construction cost right now. one of our big problems is power out in this area. The pump station that we have to put in is just enormous. We're looking at 3 750 horsepower electric motors. So we basically have to build a substation to power this lift station, this booster pump. But we will take water from this line and push it all the way up. We can get it and fill all of our tanks up north with this water. We are actually looking at possibly putting a generator in there and running a natural gas generator to run our pumps, or we're actually looking at pumps that are actually powered by natural gas engines instead of electric motors. We're looking at all of our cost involved, what our maintenance, long-term maintenance will be, and find out which is going to be the most cost-effective out in that area.
Would those are those similar generators to what we've seen out there that we're looking at with the power warehouse? Or the power building?
They're a little bit smaller, and that's, I've talked with Kelly about it. We're looking at a 1.2 megawatt generator, which is a very large generator. It's, I think his are 2 megawatt.
Yeah, you guys saw 2.
Yeah. But I talked with Kelly, and we were leaning towards generation and using electric motors when the day comes that we can actually get the power that we need out to this site without us building a full-on substation. Then we can actually stop using the generator and possibly move that up and to Kelly's power yard, and he could actually utilize it as part of the generation at a price. I won't give it to him. As growth continues, we need to build some more storage tanks. This is our Red Cliffs 2 million tank. You can see little white dots right now. This is our 2.3 million gallon, and this one right here is our 1 million gallon Red Cliffs tank. We've actually secured the property. We've actually prepared the pad. When we did some waterline work, we had extra material that we had to get rid of, so we went ahead and prepared the pad site, knowing that we'd need this tank in the future. Again, this is all going to be based on growth. As growth comes, we'll have to add that extra capacity and storage. On cost, back on our East Regional Connection or landfill line, I've got in the budget $3.4 million in this next year. It's actually, total cost is probably going to be about $6 million. So we're still working on that. I don't know that this would happen next year, but we might start working some phasing on this.
The Spectre reports that you need to send the council and mayor out to Washington DC a couple of times a year, and they just give you money. Maybe that's what we need to budget for.
I read that article. It was a DC trip, huh?
We've actually phased this
like
into 2 phases.
Like a reasonable way of getting money.
Up to, I think it's a 10-year, and then out to full build out. So there's actually 2 lines in there, a 30-inch and a 16-inch, and then goes to a 20 and a 24. So some pretty good sized piping. On our Red Cliffs tank, that's scheduled for 2016. It's 1.5 million. We also are going to need a tank in the south area. So this is just kind of an area that we could possibly put a tank that's out in the Long Valley area. We're calling it our south tank, and it's scheduled for 2017 at $2 million. And now, the fun one, streets. I'd much rather do water and sewer than streets. There's a funding mechanism anyway. Streets, telegraph. This is one I kind of talked with council about. We've gone back, we've looked at other options. We looked at innovations of what's out there, and then I think we can actually do this for about $800,000. I've actually scheduled that into next year.
So, upcoming budget?
Yes, this upcoming
2014
budget. It's actually broke down in 2 line items, telegraph mill and fill and telegraph overlay, 500,000 in one, 300,000 in the other. We've got some real issues in that road that we're gonna be out with our crews trying to address. There's some real distress in that road about halfway up on your way to Coral Canyon that we've had actually the soils engineer out looking at that, and we're supposed to meet with him this week to find out what his results are. I thought we might have a slide happening there. He's actually said he doesn't believe it's a slide. He just thinks it's a subgrade issue. That's good news. We can repair a subgrade issue. A slide is pretty hard to stop.
And so the plan with that project is to do completely from, what is that, Washington Parkway all the way to SR9, basically?
300 east.
300 east to SR9?
300 east to SR9. 300 east to Washington Parkway, that asphalt is pretty close to 20 years it's been down. I think 19 years. I think it was done in 95. We've done some slurries on it, but we've got some rutting issues in there. So we need to go in on that section and do some level coursing and do an overlay on that. Or we go in and mill it, get it smooth again, and overlay it. Up over the, from Washington Parkway up over to the landfill road, that has what's called an open grade. And if you've ever noticed, when it rains, the rain does not stay on the road. It actually goes into the asphalt and then will migrate off to the edge, which makes a very safe surface to travel on in the rain. But that creates a real problem for us to do any type of treatments on it. They're telling us we have to mill that off and overlay it. Now I am getting word back that they can actually do a micro-surfacing over top of that. And that's what happened on Telegraph in front of Walmart Home Depot as part of the Telegraph project. That is a microsurface. They can actually lay that. It's like a slurry sill, but it's 3/4 to 1.5 inches thick. Has some special polymers in there that sets it quicker. So we're looking at a lot of options on it, but it definitely needs to get some work done on before it falls apart.
Well, that's a lot less than what you had originally thought it was going to be.
Yeah, about half. Yep, we're about half of what we originally thought.
Is there any, if it's 800,000, is there reasons why we couldn't split it between 2 different years, do part of it 1 year and the next the other, or is there cost savings built into it because of the distance?
There's cost savings because of the size of the project, some very good major cost savings.
Okay.
Bronson's been doing a lot of work on this, running numbers, getting numbers from contractors, trying to come up with the most cost-effective way of doing the maintenance on this road, as well as a good maintenance product that is going to last for another.
We've talked to multiple different engineers to find out what's going to work with the existing surface that's there.
We have, and we've used Landmark quite a bit as one of our materials engineers, and on this road I'm actually bringing in AGEC to get a second opinion from a different materials engineer.
It's probably a good idea.
One of the things we could do, if you wanted to split it over 2 years, we could maybe the second year get it what's issued an interim warrant, which just means that we just get a fund based pegged against the whatever fund you'll be paying it back with it. So if it's a BNC or a capital improvement, one of your capital improvement funds, we could do an interim warrant and still kind of spread it over 2 years.
I'm just trying to figure out if we're,
but still do it all at once.
If it's all got to come out of general fund dollars or where we're coming up with the funding, maybe that's a way to spread it out a little more. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
No, Barry's still here. I was going to say Parks.
Yeah.
Poor Barry. You know, I should have used Mike as an example. We could reduce some of Mike's water and sewer.
Maybe you could take some of his mill that he takes off and put it on your trail.
It's actually not a bad idea.
Poor Barry.
Actually, the millings that will come off this is going to be really good millings. Very good for laying back down somewhere.
Might not be bad for a parking lot right there at the trailhead.
We won't let the contractor take that away. We will stockpile it for doing gravel roads there and then lay it down. It'll compact in and we can hit it with a rejuvenator. It'll be just like an asphalt road. This section of Telegraph, all we have to do is an overlay on it because it doesn't have any of the treatments on it. We don't need to mill it.
So that's at the end.
That's basically from the 14th Fairway development in Coral Canyon.
Okay, so the end of that furthest Coral Canyon. Okay. But that's all included in that 800,000?
It is.
Okay.
Another one of our project is we will probably be needing a signal at 2000 South and the Fields Road.
How has that signal at the Dam Road affected traffic flows out that way?
Probably ought to ask Councilman Turek more than anyone.
Well, I'm curious that the guys.
That's his, actually, that's the intersection he
My-
comes
I
off.
stopped 2 or 3 times on it today, and every time I hit it was red.
Does
My
it help? Does it
experience-
help?
My experience that I've
2000
seen
South
out
at
there
all?
is it's actually creating breaks for the traffic out here to where they can get out.
Yeah, the one thing that has really helped is it's give a turn lane to come onto 2000, so you're not anticipating traffic anymore. They have to shift to that lane, and so you can tell that they're gonna turn. And so it has helped in some ways, better than I thought it was gonna, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I know you had concerns about it. So.
Yeah, it seems to be functioning. Of course, right now it's all tore back up again,
Right.
so it's back to kind of a disaster for a week or two. But
Okay.
We
no,
have
it seems
that-
to be functioning quite well, I'll be honest with you.
We have this marked at 2015 for $300,000. Our next project is Washington Fields Phase 6. It's actually in this year's budget. We've had delays on that because of some environmental issues. So I've actually moved part of the funds from this year into next year's funds. We are anticipating advertising that in April, with construction starting in May.
What's been your environmental issues? Don't want to talk about it now, okay.
The engineer didn't get it submitted. It sat
love
up on
that.
their office up in Pleasant Grove, didn't get submitted in.
Who's the engineer?
So in turn, the engineer's not real happy with us because I will not approve a change in conditions for them to receive more money. It's not my fault they didn't turn it in, so they don't deserve any more money.
Who's the engineer?
They have an office up in Pleasant Grove and one in St. George.
Okay.
A pretty reliable engineering firm for road work. Our next project is the Sunrise Valley Road. If we get that bridge over the Virgin River there, I'd like to go in there and build at least a 2-lane road. We'll probably base it, maybe even just a double chip on it, just so we can get traffic moving across there.
Just an additional access.
Just an
across the
additional
bridge,
access to
across
get
the river.
across the river. I've actually put 500,000 into this next year's budget towards that. Now, if we don't acquire the road, then we will just move that off or acquire the bridge. We'll move that off into the next year.
And these funds are all coming from impact fees or
Parks.
parks?
Impact fees,
That would be eligible.
our
Is
$0.25
that
sales
in the
tax, some
capital
of that.
facilities plan?
Okay.
Is that one in the capital
Yes.
facilities plan? It is.
It is. This one is actually earmarked as an impact fee project. The Fields Phase 6 is an impact fee project.
Is it 5 that's our MPO project?
Pardon me?
Fields 5, is that the MPO project?
Yeah, 5 is the one, 5 was the parcel through, Washington Fields Phase 5 was the parcel that went through Andrus's.
Oh.
So this is Phase 4 of Washington Fields. This goes from basically Lost Ridge Drive, our cottonwood tree, out to 3650.
What's the year on that, so I can tell the Harmons again?
That,
Cut that tree down and build around it.
We're gonna put a roundabout around that tree.
It's the only cottonwood I've ever seen live that long. They do get brittle.
that's 2015. Now, I've got $300,000 earmarked for that. That is our participating cost. We have $1 million MPO funds that we received for this project. I'm hoping that we can get a 5-lane facility for that. When we get closer and start into a little bit of the design work, then we might have to look at budgets and, but minimum, we'd want a 3-lane, a center turn lane through there and some wider shoulders. But it would fix a lot of deficiencies in that road as you start heading into the Staley Farm areas. Make it a much better road to travel. Green Springs and Telegraph intersection.
Feeling pretty good about roads for a minute.
This is a moving target. I actually received an email today from the main traffic engineer at UDOT at the regional complex. They have hired a contractor to come down and do some improvements in that intersection. They've changed the signal timing, which I don't know if you've noticed, but towards the end of February, it's actually started to move traffic a little better. They spend a week down here looking at traffic, seeing what they could do to change timing on this intersection to help traffic move. They're going to add a right-hand turn arrow. So if you're coming and want to make a right-hand turn off of any of those lakes, they're going to add some arrows in to help get those right-hand traffic to move a little bit freer. They're going to add detection, radar detection up there, so they can actually look and see the traffic stacking and
How far it's backed up and stuff.
how they're backing up. You know, actually, it will count the cars rolling through. It will look at their delay times. They will actually be able to look at that up at the main complex and can adjust the signal at that complex when we have an issue there. They're also going to put in a flashing yellow left turn off of 3050. So the left-hand turning off 3050 heading down Red Cliffs. They can only do that when it's a single left. You cannot do those on a dual left. I'm going to have actually that gentleman come in and address council in a work meeting when we are finaled up on this study. Very, very intelligent. Very intelligent. Made a lot of sense to me, the issues we're having there. One of the things he says is do not widen. That's the last thing you want to do, because our biggest problem in that intersection, and I didn't realize this, is pedestrian.
Pedestrian crossing, yeah.
And you have to give X amount of time for a width of a road for a pedestrian to cross.
So if you widen it, it's even longer.
Correct.
If we widen it, it's a longer queue that we're going to have to hold traffic.
There's actually a lot of foot traffic in that area.
I was amazed how much foot traffic is in that area.
Yeah, if you sit there and watch, there's lots of people.
His opinion was that either there's only two things that will fix that intersection. The through turns or a continuous flow intersection. And we actually had the engineers look at the continuous flow, and it's actually, you come to the intersection and you actually move shift lanes clear over to the opposite side of the road, and you make your free left. It won't work. We completely lock out the businesses on the corner. The Sinclair Station and Hearts will be completely locked out. They will have no access. So it does not work. We're looking at the through turns, but we're looking at a modified. We're looking at only doing the 2 legs on Telegraph. That really helps the Albertsons off of 3050 and those stores down there to have access.
It gets them better access to their locations.
Yeah. And so we'll be bringing those back to council to look at, and probably have this Mark Taylor come in at the same time and address council.
I was reading an article the other day, I think it was on St. George's, we'd had another accident there, and it said Washington City's broken intersection.
Yeah.
And
this is the busiest intersection in the county.
well, I was trying to get out of Albertsons
It's busier
the other
than
night,
any of
so I
them on
told my
Bluff.
wife, you can't, I mean, it's broken, you can't get in and out of those businesses as it is. So you've got to do something there, even if we median it, has got to help those things, because I mean, right now you can't get in and out, so it's just as well as having a median.
Yeah, this Mark Taylor, he made the comment, if you don't do the through turns, do nothing at all. He says anything else is anything other than through turns will actually slow your traffic down. Now, they looked at the signal optimization on this as well. And he said, you are at capacity now, it won't help anything. And the other interesting thing is that he said the Green Springs Telegraph intersection controls every signal, 2 signals down every way. What happens at that signal will control every one of those signals. It's none of those signals affect that one. It's that one affects everything else.
That's the control signal.
That's the controlling intersection. So they're very, very interested in fixing this issue here.
So, Mike, I'm assuming then, you know, you've just place held this at 2017, especially if signal optimization is not gonna work, those type of things, it could move.
Right. In 2017, we have MPO funds. We have 1.8 million of MPO funds in 2017. We'll come back with a new estimate if we do on the through turns for the modified through turns. I've asked the engineers to try to tighten that up, get as realistic as possible. Another issue we have to contend with is right-of-way. There's been a ruling on right-of-way that in the past, when UDOT has acquired right-of-way, they compensate the property owner. They've never compensated the renter. And a good example is Burger Place. The owner, the people that ran Burger Place got nothing out of it. The owner of the property got the money. Now you have to compensate the renter of the property as well. So our right-of-way issues could be very large on this. And so we're actually running the numbers on that, trying to estimate what we could be at as far as right-of-way on this. It's a very complex problem we have here.
Give some good news somewhere.
No. Washington Fields Phase 7, that's going to be really when growth comes and it dictates that we need to build it. We've got it in at 2017. Realistically, I don't see that happening. We will work on trying to acquire federal funds for that when that comes down.
We're not gonna be able to get the airport for 3 years.
That means, Mayor, you better start going to DC.
Main Street Extension,
Working that.
that's another one that we've just anticipated that we're gonna have to start working on as growth starts coming. That's also 2017. We've got that in at $1 million. These can change drastically depending on the growth and how much participation we can get out of developers on these. Pretty much a developer will build 50-foot road and we're responsible for the remainder. Where this is, master plan is an 80-foot road. We still have quite a bit of road to build. Well, good. We're out of streets. Our storm drain projects.
Real quick, so on streets then, as you can anticipate, cash flow on streets, we hit a negative cash flow status in 2014.
On our storm drain projects, our 3650 trunk line, this possibly could go in another area. We're actually working with the developers of the Steeplechase subdivision. They need to get storm drained to their property. We're looking at participating with them and upsizing it, and this is really to get storm drainage out to that south area that we will desperately need. It will tie into our existing backbone that we've already installed down 240 West. We've got that in 2014 at $300,000. Our 100 East trunk line, we have a little bit of a deficit there that we need to address, getting some of that stormwater issues that we have up there and get it moved down to the river.
Right now, it's just running through canal or something there.
Right now, it's using irrigation ditches, basically. Now, we have worked with the property owner, Rick Salisbury, on, I don't remember the name of his development.
Hobble Creek.
Hobble Creek.
Hobble Creek. We've worked with them, and they've actually laid storm drain in all the way down
Got it in a pipe
from
right now.
basically where this one ends down to Mill Creek. And we've worked with him and got that in. That's actually a big plus because now that road will actually hopefully dry out with all the springs.
The weeds won't go quite so tall.
Yeah. We've got this anticipated for 2016 at $250,000. 100 South Trunk Line, there presently is a line in there. A lot of it is collapsed. It's an old metal, I believe about an 18-inch corrugated metal. Most of the bottom is rotted out on it. Yeah, across the street.
Yeah, it is.
Probably because of you, man.
So this is a project that we need to get in and replace an existing line.
It's pretty bad.
One of the good things is when we did Telegraph reconstruction, we actually stopped all the water that was coming from north of Telegraph at Telegraph and carry it to the river. So this one does not need to be nearly as large as we originally anticipated in our master plan. And we've got that scheduled to 2017 at $300,000.
Let's bump that one up to 2014.
300,000?
Yes. Oh, I'm done.
Sure, done.
I'm done. That's it.
And there's no, under stormwater, there's no negative cash flow with regard to stormwater during the next 5 years. Let me, Mayor, if I can, touch on two other items. And I have no photos or maps. But we have, within your package, you'll see the general capital project. That includes some remodel work for 2013. Let me jump to 2014. 2014, we have, of course, the air handler budgeted for this building at $110,000. And then we have some miscellaneous $5,000 work to do in the council chambers. Some work needs to be done with microphones and chairs and some of the other things we've got with that. We do have a fund balance with respect to money we have in the general capital fund, and so there is not to be anticipated any negative cash flow right now with the general. The only other item I will touch on is a couple of pages down from that, and that is with respect to the fire capital. We have nothing anticipated as a capital expenditure in 2014. We then show our within the budget a Quint ladder truck, $850,000 in 2015. There's some estimate at this time that maybe we could pull about $300,000 in grant funds for that. So it'd be about some available funds there for that. And then we've got Type 3 engine in 16, and then a couple of stations. I'm not sure those stations will necessarily be back-to-back in 17 and 18, but just probably one of those stations might be needed at that point. And again, so we'll have a negative cash flow with respect to fire on 2015 since there's nothing in 2014 that we're anticipated. We did accomplish, of course, the brush trucks, the 2 brush trucks this year as well. So anyway, as I mentioned before, biggest concerns are those items that affect the general fund, because the general fund doesn't have their own source. You saw that our negative cash flows always hit the general funds because they're not any dedicated funds. Really, there's a couple of options with respect to what we do, and here's what we would look at. Certainly one of the big issues that, and I appreciate the council's support 2 weeks ago to the creation of tax increment finance zones, because certainly development is, we should be very aggressive about, and I think we're to the point where we can be very aggressive with the market out there, because any growth for us from that standpoint has the least impact upon our community as far as being able to generate the revenues we need to expand. So economic development is absolutely crucial. Short of that, and again I'm referring to other options, we are looking at the current cost allocations between the proprietary funds and the general fund. Now what that means is that there's just this cost of doing business that a power department still relies upon a general fund to provide for them, from legal services to accounting services to those type of things. We haven't done a cost allocation study between those proprietary funds in some times. Kimberly's office will be biting that off in the next few months for all the proprietary funds. So I don't have much to guesstimate on right now, but I would anticipate that you will see some cost allocation, those going up slightly, which means just more funds will be coming into the general fund on a cost allocation. As we've already mentioned, there's the possibility that we could restructure some of the impact fee structure a little bit and be able to accomplish some of these in the way we structure the impact fees. And then another item, of course, is what we've been currently involved in, and that is debt restructure. and being able to take advantage of lower interest rates. I will. I will give you some.
That was appropriate.
I'll give you some good news. This actually kind of goes back to a comment that Councilman Truman just made a few minutes ago. We had an interest rate reset on the community center that just occurred this last year, and that interest rate reset went from about, and I'm just going to guess on these numbers because it's just for more, just to illustrate, we went from approximately probably 3% to a 1% interest rate, savings of about 113 or 130. Kimberly, you remember? Yeah, about 130.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Or just overall?
Just overall on the community center. It's the MBA, the Municipal Building Authority, just reset. And so we'll continue to do those. Then short of all those things, once we've wrung those things out, then of course we're left with, we can adjust taxes if we need to. But that's always our least, and quite frankly, I think we have lots of options, like I said, for us to pursue with respect to that. So our objective tonight was to share with you what the departments see as a couple of things. To have the department share with you what they see as the capital needs associated with the city, and then second of all, to show you how we forecasted revenues and expenditures flowing, and where we have concerns and where we don't have concerns. I think it was important that you hear that. What this will do now is the capital budget is just part of your regular budget. So, you know, it's not on for adoption tomorrow. It will be adopted, the capital budget, just as part of our regular budget adoption process. So if the council has some, wants to move some things around, if the council wants to say, no, I want to take that out completely, et cetera, we still have some time to discuss that. And then again, at the end of the day, just because it's in the budget doesn't mean the council then doesn't have the opportunity to adjust and to flow as need be. And quite frankly, staff does that as we watch cash flows. We might adjust and just to make sure cash flows are always positive. Okay, so I think that was our presentation tonight on capital.
Thank you very much. Do we want to go to number 3? Are you going to handle that, Roger? Or?
Yeah, I got to see what number 3 is. What is number 3?
Part-time
discussion of hours for part-time.
Oh, the next 2 I can handle really quickly. So let me start with number 3 real quick. There are some, matter of fact, I probably mentioned this to all of you, most of you, if not all of you. We of course are preparing some rewrites of the personnel handbook associated with changes with respect to part-time, seasonal, and all of that are affiliated with the Affordable Care Act, okay? And so, but we know that we're currently we started on January 1st calculating what we call our measurement period, and we've chosen to use a 1-year measurement period. Any organization over 50 employees can choose what they want as their measurement period. What that means is whatever uses a measurement period to determine who is eligible for health care and who is not eligible for health care, you have to take that same period of time if they do become eligible and provide that health care for them. So we've chosen a 12-month period because of the seasonal nature of our things like the community center, which is where a majority, our golf courses, our parks, which is the majority of where our temporary employees or part-time employees are. So we're in the process of doing some rewrites that'll come back to the council, several rewrites within the employee handbook, which will come before the council for discussion and action. But the reason it's on tonight's agenda is because I wanted to mention that we are right now tentatively setting out, or we would recommend to the council that we tentatively set out a 25-hour maximum on average per week during that measurement period for part-time employees.
That would put an annual at about 1,300 annual.
Yeah, probably. I didn't do the calculation.
I just did the calculation, so.
That puts us about 5 hours below the requirement. We recognize this is going to be a burden on some of our very good employees that like every hour they can get. We just feel that that's not terribly overly conservative, but we do want to err on that side a little bit. So unless
does that go from January through December? Is that the year that?
And then what we'll do is, and we'll have the ability to monitor a rolling average on all of our employees. So if we start to see an employee, so the nice thing about it being an average is somebody could work 40 hours in a week. They just have to average below that. In our case, if you agree with this, it'd be 25 at this moment. And the reason I'm asking tonight is just so we can start incorporating that in the language to bring it back to you. But the advantage to the annual, and we'll know precisely where our employees are. But it is a challenge.
And does our payroll system, accommodate that? So this isn't something,
yeah,
people have to sit down there and
no, I think HR and finance have been working together, and I think they're comfortable with the reporting that they'll be able to watch. And so I just kind of wanted to get a feel from the council on whether 25 is they're comfortable with, or if they want to do something else.
Well, I think the 25 is a good number because it does give us a little wiggle room.
Correct.
I would rather be on the lower side and have room to move if we had to, than be too close to that, because the costs involved if somebody goes over that is to the point where it's not worth it.
And it's not just the actual cost, but the fines they've imposed for those? You get hit with those?
Well, yeah, the
Are
fines,
ridiculous.
yeah.
Well,
they're 6 figures.
What our
per
hope
incident.
is, and I think I really am. I think this is going to be. I think there is going to be. I believe there's going to be some pushback legislatively on this in the next year, because I don't think. Yeah. I don't think the private sector has a clue of what this is going to do.
Well, the ones who do are already getting pushback on it because they've cut that, but they've cut their part-timers back to similar.
It's doing exactly opposite of what a lot of people thought it would.
Exactly.
A lot of people had hoped it would
And
do.
so-
Certainly,
That was-
yeah.
They're getting less time. They're not
That's
getting
right.
more time.
Yeah, it's
To stay on that safe side. That's the
it's tough for
problem.
those people who, that's,
Certainly, that's what I've said. It's been a negative effect to those that really was meant to help. It's going to be a negative situation.
I feel bad. I know we have some people who want to work 30 hours a week, and sadly with the federal regulations the way they are, it's not going to work for us. I'm comfortable at 25 hours.
I am as well.
Yeah, I think we need to keep it under the margin rather than pay the penalties and risk the penalties.
Agreed.
Well, it gives you a little wiggle room where you can pick up a shift if you have to. I mean, it gives those managers a chance to say, oh, here, I can plug you in and pick up an extra one, because we have built a cushion into where if you've got everybody working the fine line,
Yeah.
there's sometimes scheduling, you just run into a brick wall.
Yeah, and it's good if our software does accommodate that. So I'm assuming that we're pretty good on that.
We are.
We have a lot of seasonal part-time people.
Well, I'll tell you where our complications become. Our complication becomes when you start dealing with firefighter.
Yeah.
Because of the way they're structured. That becomes a real challenge for us, just because of the way they're structured, shifts are structured, and those type of things. So
Maybe you should clarify, it's our volunteer and
Yeah.
volunteer.
Yeah.
Guys, they become part-time employees at this point with this, and so.
Because the problem is, because they get on call, sometimes you can't plan like you can your part-times. You can plan for those hours, but when you get a call for a fire or something, it's difficult to plan in.
And the problem is, not a lot of that has been fleshed out on the federal level yet. And so you're kind of going with what's written. I believe some of it will, but anyway, as I mentioned, this will be codified to bring back to you, but we have to address things. I think you'll see the term seasonal employees completely come out of our handbook, because it's not relevant anymore. And so those are some of the changes we'll be making with respect to that. So that's all I had, Mayor, on that.
Thank you. Everybody all right with that? Okay.
And then the final.
Northbridge.
Yeah, great, thank you. I just wanted to tell you, we've reviewed this all through our departments. And I have actually been in communication with both the property owner and Mr. Belliston, matter of fact, and so they know our schedule. But I wanted to just make sure we have found no concerns with our departments, meaning there's no easements, there's no need to keep that particular piece of ground open for any reason or another. And so the staff is comfortable. If the council still feels like we want to give the property owners the go-ahead to begin to do their work, and their work is substantial, they've got to do it.
And that's that area next to the park.
That's
that
right.
butts right up to the park, and it's just the 3 pieces that they're looking at.
Yeah, I think it was actually, let's see, it's just 2, lots 102 and 103.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, their work is fairly sizable, and I've been very clear on that. And sometimes you find the cost to do their work is more than the property itself, but very first thing they need to do, which will take a little time, is they need to amend the subdivision plat. because you've got to include those extended parcels. So they know that, that's their responsibilities, they'll have to go through the planning commission, and then, of course, they'll have to do the title work, the appraisals, what else am I missing? There's some other things in there, and prepare all that for the council, for us to review, and then the council will approve the sale, and then the transaction will occur. So, and at this point, they're still comfortable doing that. I've shared what would be their obligation, and they've said that they're comfortable with that. They're just anxious to move it along because their backyards are being done.
But they're amending the plat, they understand.
They have to amend the plat, and I told them that would probably be the most time-consuming issue, just simply because it has to go through the process.
Okay.
So if the council still feels okay at that, then I'll tell them, because I told them I would talk to the council tonight to see if there were any hesitations, and if there wasn't any hesitations on the part of the council, I would tell them you may proceed forward.
My only hesitation is just that it creates a weird line there.
It does, there's no doubt about it.
And I have some concerns with that, is just how that would look and maintaining that right there, but.
I think we did we end up having Lester look at the high water mark too? We're okay? Okay.
Well, the rush of other people wanting to do it, but again, if they have to go through all the steps, I think it'll become, that's problematic, that'll become a deterrent enough unless it's really something they want to do in the future. I don't think you'll make a rush of people coming in for it.
Okay.
Okay, gentlemen,
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that one.
there's a motion and a second to adjourn.
Truman, aye.
Hudson, aye.
Terry guy.
All right, thank you. See you tomorrow, huh?
Yes.